All right, welcome back. Continuing the last InfoSec tools video um, for non-interactive sandboxes, we jump into one of the few interactive sandboxes that I enjoy. So what we have is obviously the exact opposite of non-interactive. So where you basically just take a sample, dump it into the black box does whatever it's going to do, and poof, IOCs, TTPs, everything else like that as it breaks out. You can go through and do much the same with an interactive sandbox, but it's interactive for a reason. So you can go through and um, poke and prod uh, the system, the samples, anything that might actually be on the system itself. Basically, just for any sort of form of interaction. Uh, Obviously, depending as to what kind of sample you're running, the more interactions you can do, the more it actually looks like a more lived-in system. More possibility of potentially allowing all this stuff to go through without being caught in some sort of VM trap. Terms of the sample detects it's in a VM and pretty much just kills itself. So, much like many of the options covered thus far, there is, thankfully, a free option for Any.Run. So let's see. Here we go. So, obviously, like with anything free, there are limitations to everything. So it looks like 16 meg upload max file size. Looks like reports are covered all the way across. You are limited only to Windows 7 32-bit, so if you have a 64-bit piece of malware, it will not run on this. And then obviously all the extras. So obviously the more you shell out per month or on the yearly subscription, the more stuff that's unlocked. Timeout does say 60 seconds for the free for non-commercial. This can be extended, I believe it's up to 4 or 5 minutes on the free plan. Obviously, going through and paying for any of the actual plans on the platform, you get pro rule sets, man in the middle for HTTPS, allows for commercial usage because obviously you're paying for it. And then pretty much just straight access to 32 and 64-bit copies of Windows Vista 7, 8.1, and 10. Now, obviously, if you go the bigger plan, then you get the nice section to use a custom OpenVPN config, be able to set the locales for where the VM emulates it's from. Plenty of good, decent stuff. So just to show, so I've got two different sections here. This is the free account and analysis done. It's going to be kind of the same between both sets of interfaces. The sample runs, and while it's going through, like in this one, you'll see as I play with the timeline here, it moves forward. I opened up the Word document that was sitting on the desktop, and then I closed it, which is shown in the process tree here. So we uploaded the same sample we used for the non-interactive sandboxes, and it basically just breaks everything out there. Once everything's all done, the very handy aspect of an IOC button to take you to exactly what you're looking for, IOCs in most cases. Also has a section of tags as to what this sample comes back with. So this is the Redline remote access tool. There's also a tracker section as it breaks down here. There are a myriad of symbols for indicators. So you see here we've got one for task contains several apps running. If we take a look at the subprocess reg svcs.exe, we can see that it connects to the network and it is a known threat. And then it actually goes through and shows you during the 300 seconds, again on the free account, the timeline that this thing ran through. So you can see the exe we uploaded ran just for the beginning and then was gone, whereas that was replaced with the reg svcs.exe, and that ran all the way to the end of the 300 seconds, and then me opening up the, well, okay, RTF file on the desktop was just a small smidgen of time. Bottom section, it's all broken apart. So underneath network, HTTP requests, connections, DNS requests, threats. In most cases, you need to have the pay for to be able to see there because, again, limitations, it's only the open intel for those detections. But we can see that basically reg svcs.exe made a connection that was deemed malicious to the Russian Federation. Gives you the IP, the port, ASN, and you can basically bring it up to take a look at the communications back and forth. And then you can take a look from the file view, and I have yet to find an instance to go through and do the debug view. So maybe I'm missing something. Something that's similar in both is you can have reports generated off, and I think I had one. Yeah, one of the samples. Reports appear to be the same between the free and the paid for accounts. And of course, in everything that they do, you click the tracker button that was in the upper right hand corner and basically just breaks out and gives you plenty of information in regards to the threats that they are tracking with all that stuff. So, very nice. Clicking on any of the samples gives you a subsection in the lower right, which effectively you can just hit more info and it breaks everything down. So we've got where this thing was running from, SID it was running under. You can download it, you can look it up on VT in order to bring up the results. So, okay, this is 25 days old at the time of recording, but 14 out of 67. Again, we got the command line for the stuff to kick off, and then it basically breaks down indicators of suspicious behavior. So this one just checks supported languages, which I would be interested to see is since it made comms back to Russian Federation, if we sat there and if we wouldn't have the spawn of the reg svcs.exe, if we sat underneath the paid account and set it for like Russian locale. Right hand side underneath the details for the particular process gives you all the events as this stuff breaks through. Obviously there's not much attached to this, so let's go ahead and fire up the reg svcs. Go more info. Obviously you see that the indicators of suspicious behavior have changed. So still checks supported languages, reads computer name, reads environment variables, and because this is a well-known threat, it picks out the name and basically flashes it to you. Here, again, no modified files, but we are able to go through and take a look at the registry changes that this goes through and do, the HTTP requests, network connections, Network threats, again, requiring the paid for account to see anything that's not in the open rule sets, modules, and the like. Okay, so let's see about showing the, oh, well, basically once you're signed in, it's simple of off the bar, plus sign. You can drag and drop, you can put in a website to take a look. They give you the standard set of browsers, i.e. iShutter, Chrome, Firefox, Opera, along with a nice selection of where you can sit there and run the object from. Any additional command line arguments you need to sit there and see about going through and do. Durations, again, so 10 to 60 seconds, but you do, once the sample's going, you will be able to extend the time. So you can do fake net, underneath network, you can route it through Tor. Tor is generally what I tend to do for most of these samples that I upload. And again, because it's free, no privacy. So basically anything you submit is public. So that is something else to keep in mind when you're using just about any of these tools. You want to verify that you're, at least 99.9% confident that there is no PII or sensitive information in there. Because once you basically pull the trigger, all this stuff's up there, and if someone's paying attention, they might be able to grab whatever it is you just uploaded. No control over the pre-installed software set. Again, because this is underneath the free account, and again, you're stuck on Windows 7 32-bit. Not necessarily bad. So now if we go over and we switch, so we see we do transition. Okay, there we go. Now she's kicking off. So this is underneath the paid for account. So say, was it pricing that I did in order to actually have it? Nope, it doesn't change. Okay, well, nuts to that then. Nuts to that. Okay. So underneath the paid for account, you can see that same exact sample, still detected as red line. I ran it through using the man in the middle for HTTPS, and obviously we get a little bit more. It's also added to the fact that I launched Firefox and just kind of puttered around a little bit. Same thing with opening up another RTF document on the desktop. So again, the same aspect, you get all the same results, except obviously with this one you should be able to sit there and restart the system and be able to kick it off to, like, I think it's 14 or 15 minutes with the account that I have. So you see that the sample I submitted was 380 seconds for the runtime. Still the same trackers, but this time I was able to do it underneath Windows 10 64-bit. And because it's non-paid account, or non-free account, excuse me, so we're able to get the items as they're dumped through here. So apparently there's a rule set in Saricata IDS that will pick this stuff up. Same exact portion, be able to go through and see the stuff as it processes once it's done. So it's me screwing around on the system, so you get the highlights. Again, same exact aspect, click on something, you get the different indicators. And basically, so it looks like this one did a little bit more on a 64-bit system for Windows 10. Looks like it stole the credentials from the web browsers. And actions looking like stealing user data. Pulling from Chromium user data. Besides that, not a whole heck of a lot changes. So we'll go ahead and tell it we want to submit. So this is the standard interface just for quick and dirty. So you can see that obviously I can sit there and flip it 64-bit from 32. I more prefer the Pro mode myself, as this is what was demonstrated. So again, type or copy a URL, upload a file, same exact options for where to start it from. If it involves a web browser, same exact 4 options. Preset commands or command line options, that's all the same. Runtime up to 660 seconds as opposed to the topping out at 60 for the free account. And then of course the user VPN, so being able to sit there and dump that config. I'd have to upload something. And then obviously HTTPS man in the middle proxy. Apparently I would have to sit there and go, yep. So even though they gave me limited time access to this, so I'd still end up having to pay. So this seems like this is kind of like a demo in terms of between that searcher and hunter somewhere within there. So again, pre-installed set, clean for the different platforms. We see that obviously, so there's looks like some updates get applied and more updates too as we go through and we adjust the pre-installed software set, whereas we just had complete before. So OS language, plenty of different languages on there, most of which I don't even remotely speak. Basically, then it just kicks off just like anything else. So I guess let's do this. Let me see if I can just, actually, if I go through and maybe it's not restart inside of the sandbox. Maybe it's basically run this again. Okay, so we got the same exe. We got Windows 10, 64. We say it's just an office build. So somebody unfortunately got this. So we'll do man in the middle proxy. I honestly say, not entirely sure as to what to make out of all this. So let's do this. Let's pretend that we are. I mean, because it reaches out, reaches out to a Russian IP address. Not that that means a whole heck of a lot. Could just have been somebody's compromised workstation. Let's do something else. Is anybody's Japanese any good? So we're just gonna say Japan. 64-bit. Yeah, we'll stick on Windows 10. And of course, notification is going to be public because you need to have a paid plan if you're not going to bother to share, which makes sense. And away this stuff goes. No difference in speed for any of that stuff standing up. Maybe a little bit slower, but I am also basically screwing around with the locale settings and the office build. And so this is what it looks like. Not really any different than the other ones. So we can expand this out. We've got the CPU and RAM usage on the system. And of course the all-important add time button. That's like 4 or 5 presses before she's tapped out. And basically she just goes through and runs. So like if we go and take a look and bring up Task Manager. Nothing's been added to startup apparently. And so if we go and start taking a look at, I want name. Do we still see any evidence of that UYTRGSDDASD? Doesn't look like it. And again, you notice I open up Task Manager and we get the additional entries through here. No real evidence of anything else of this stuff going. Obviously, we know that these things are still going because we see the bar as they flash through to denote that it's still going through. So obviously this is dead. This is still going along with con host. So if we go ahead and close Task Manager, boom, bar goes full red. It doesn't look like anything really changes. So again, we get the Redline Stealer config download. That would be detected by the Saracata IDS. And of course, the all-important aspect. I've never tried it in full screen. I mean, it's already mostly, but sure, why not? Oh, wow. Okay, so it's like you're literally there in the system, if that doesn't come across very well. You got the standard system tray, standard icons, so Edge. Take a look at all this stuff. Of course, like any good oh, good lord. I'm assuming that's supposed to be careers hits as opposed to career shits. Oh, that's great. And then like anything else, you can open it and oh, so it's just a black background. Okay. But I mean, it's a fully realized VM, which is beautiful. So let's go ahead and drop out that. And like anything else, so you can see that MS Paint was pulled up. Yep, paintstudio.view.exe. Since it was the Paint 3D. Um, and so you can basically just go, let this do its thing, or because I don't think we're going to see much else really change as the stuff goes through, given the fact that I have already run it. The other nice, actually, no, let's test this. Can I actually restart the system and not have it cancel out? I've never tried this yet. I do believe that if you restart underneath the free plan, it disconnects it because as soon as that system's gone. Oh, wow. And the CPU and everything else like that reflected when it was down. And then here you go. As the system boots back up. So the question is it going to fire off again? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this and we'll let this go for another 10 minutes. And we'll see if anything else starts populating, if this thing had any sort of persistence mechanism that we didn't get to see or anything else like that. So back in a second. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any sort of persistence mechanism considering the fact that nothing was happening. Granted, I only waited about 4 minutes. So I opened up Task Manager just to make sure that it was still recording everything. And yeah, it is. It's done. So it doesn't look like there was any sort of persistence. So I'm just going to prematurely shut this down to basically finish it. And it looks more or less kind of sort of the same. I mean, no interface changes, but some result differences. Um, Again, the difference between Windows 7 32-bit, Windows 10 64, locale being set to Japan as opposed to America, um, the IDS rule sets, um, again, somewhere between the searcher and the hunter aspect. So effectively, that is it. Actually, no, there was another aspect too. What was it? The full-on report. Oh, I had looked at it. What was it? Yes, okay, text report, even though it basically opens up into a web browser, gives you the whole thing. I think I might have showed that off quickly. But basically just a nice detailed aspect that you can sit there and see everything. Basically be able to print the sucker off as a PDF and go from there, especially if you've got a particular incident that you're running to the ground. Process graph should just be, yeah, the break for everything. So again, with a nice little process tree. And it should also map everything to the wider attack matrix, which I believe it does as well. So let's do this. We're going to switch back to the free account. I just want to make sure that I'm not giving you bad. Yeah, okay, it maps. It maps, and the reports are of the same exact quality. The only thing might be different, obviously, is the section for the threats or anything that would be more a item for the paid for. So effectively, I cannot highly recommend enough if you don't feel overly comfortable with trying to stand up your own, malware analysis VM, or basically get a paid for VPN service to basically have all that stuff routed out. Um, if you're not overly comfortable with any of that, but you still want to get into it, then this would definitely be a good tool to add to your belt. Again, remembering that the free account is for non-commercial use. And then the just general warning of, be aware of the contents of anything that you upload. Um, since you don't want to sit there and put anything with any sort of sensitive information up into this, as unless you're paying for an account, you can't run the stuff privately. So there is all that, and that was a mostly detailed overview, look in at, around, through of the Any.Run platform as an interactive sandbox. With all that being said, you got any questions I can sit there and try to answer? I would be more than willing to sit there and take a stab at it, or you can see about reaching out to them. I do believe that they are on Twitter. Um, so yeah, I would definitely recommend giving it a try. And go from there. But at least you can sit there and see the stuff as it goes through and infects the system, as opposed to the um, screenshots or videos that you get depending on what non-interactive platform you end up running this stuff through. So, fairly significant difference between non-interactive and interactive. But with all that said, I will see everyone in the next video.